A pawn shop is one of the oldest financial businesses in the world. At first glance, it looks like a strange retail store. There are guitars on the wall, power tools behind the counter, gold chains in glass cases, old game consoles, watches, laptops, maybe even a few things that look like they came out of someone's garage 10 years ago. But a pawn shop is not just a store. It is part lender, part second-hand retailer, part appraiser, part risk manager, and part treasure hunter. The basic business model is simple. A customer brings in an item. The pawn shop estimates what that item could sell for. Then the shop offers either a direct purchase price or a short-term loan using the item as collateral. If the customer repays the loan, plus interest and fees, they get the item back. If they do not repay, the pawn shop keeps the item and sells it. That single loop is the core of the pawn business. But the real money is in the details. Let's say someone brings in a gold necklace. The pawn shop does not ask, "What did this cost new?" It asks a much more important question. What can we realistically turn this into cash for? That number is the resale value. From there, the shop works backwards. If the necklace could sell for $400, the pawn shop might offer a loan of $150 to $250. That gap protects the business because if the customer never comes back, the shop still needs room to cover. The loan amount, storage time, staff, rent, testing and authentication, possible repairs, credit card fees, markdowns, theft risk, unsold inventory, profit. That is why pawn shops usually lend much less than an item's expected resale value. A customer may feel like the offer is low, but from the pawn shop's perspective, the item is not cash yet. It is risk sitting on a shelf. Pawn shops usually make money in 3 major ways: loan interest and service fees, retail sales from forfeited items, buying items outright and reselling them. The first stream is the most important: pawn loans. A pawn loan is different from a normal loan. There is no credit check. There is no long application. There is no income verification. And if the customer does not repay, the pawn shop does not chase them for the money. The collateral is the repayment backup. That makes pawn lending fast, but also expensive. Many pawn loans are small. Industry sources often place average pawn transactions around $150 to $180 in the United States. That means the shop needs a lot of volume. A pawn shop is not making one giant loan and waiting a year. It is making many small, short-term loans over and over again. The business works when money keeps cycling. Cash goes out as loans, interest and fees come back, some items are redeemed, some items are forfeited, forfeited items become inventory, inventory becomes retail sales create more cash for more loans. That is the flywheel. Now let's talk about the customer behavior that makes this model work. A lot of people assume pawn shops want customers to default. That is not always true. In many cases, a redeemed loan is cleaner and faster. The shop gets the interest and fees, gives the item back, and does not have to photograph, price, display, discount, or sell anything. A good pawn customer may come back again and again. They pawn the same item. They repay. They pawn again later. For the business, that repeat customer can be more valuable than one forfeited item. The shop earns fee income without taking on the retail risk of selling the product. But when customers do not repay, the shop needs to be ready. That is where resale strategy matters. A pawn shop has to know what sells quickly and what just looks valuable. Gold is popular because it has melt value. Even if nobody wants the exact bracelet or ring, the metal itself has a market price. Tools can sell well because contractors, handymen, and DIY buyers want discounted equipment. Game consoles and electronics can move quickly, but they also depreciate fast. Musical instruments can be profitable, but only if the shop understands condition, brand, and demand. Luxury watches and jewelry can create strong margins, but authentication risk is higher. Firearms, where legal, can be profitable, but require much heavier regulation and compliance. The best pawn inventory is not always the most exciting. It is the inventory that turns. A $200 tool that sells in 3 days may be better than a $2,000 collectible that sits for 8 months, because shelf space has a cost. Cash trapped in slow inventory cannot be used for new loans, and in a pawn shop, liquidity is everything. Here are 10 things pawn shops usually care about when evaluating an item. Can it be resold quickly? Is there steady local demand? Is the item easy to authenticate? Is it legal and compliant to accept? Is it small enough to store efficiently? Does it have a stable market price? Is it complete with chargers, cases, or accessories? Is it damaged, locked, fake, or missing serial numbers? Will the value drop quickly? Can the shop still profit after discounts? That last point is key. Pawn shops often price with negotiation in mind. A guitar might be listed at $299, but the shop may accept $240 if it has been sitting too long. Retail pricing is not just about maximum price. It is about speed, cash flow, and inventory freshness. Now let's look at a simplified example. A customer pawns a laptop. The shop thinks it can sell the laptop for $300. It offers a $120 loan. The customer has 30 days to repay the loan, plus fees and interest. If the customer repays $150 total, the shop earns $30. That may not sound huge. But if the shop can do that repeatedly across hundreds or thousands of loans, the fee income becomes meaningful. If the customer does not repay, the shop now owns the laptop. It lists it for $300. Maybe it sells for $260. The shop originally lent $120. After overhead, testing, cleaning, and selling costs, there may still be a decent gross profit. But it took more work than a redeemed loan. That is the trade-off. Pawn shops are constantly balancing loan income against retail resale income. The biggest risk is overlending. If a shop lends too much on an item, it can get trapped. Imagine lending $500 on something that only sells for $450. That is a loss before overhead. Now add rent, payroll, card fees, taxes, display space, and possible price cuts. That one bad loan becomes worse. So pawn shops protect themselves by lending conservatively. That is why the loan-to-value ratio is so important. A pawn shop might lend less on electronics because they lose value quickly, more on gold because it has a liquid commodity value, less on niche collectibles because buyers are harder to find, more on high-demand tools because they sell quickly, less on items that require testing or repair. This is where experience matters. A good pawnbroker is not just guessing. They are checking resale databases, marketplace listings, auction prices, gold prices, brand reputation, local demand, and the condition of the item. They also need to avoid stolen goods. Pawn shops are regulated businesses. In many places, they must record customer identification, item descriptions, serial numbers, and transaction details. Some jurisdictions require pawn shops to report transactions to law enforcement databases. That compliance burden is part of the business. It creates paperwork, software costs, staff training, and legal risk. But it also protects the shop. A pawn shop that develops a reputation for taking suspicious goods can lose licenses, customers, and banking relationships. So risk assessment is not just about price, it is about legitimacy. Now let's talk about the store layout. A pawn shop's front room is retail. The back room is finance. The display cases are not random. Jewelry is usually visible because it has high value in small space. Tools are accessible because buyers want to inspect them. Electronics are often grouped by category. High-value items may be locked up. The goal is to turn forfeited collateral into cash as efficiently as possible. But there is another trick. The store itself attracts both sides of the market. People who need cash come in with items. People looking for deals come in to buy items. That means the pawn shop is both sourcing inventory and selling inventory from the same physical location. A normal retailer buys inventory from wholesalers. A pawn shop sources inventory from the public. That can create better margins, but also more unpredictability. One week, the shop may get flooded with jewelry. Another week, it may get too many TVs. Another week, tools might fly off the shelves. The pawn shop has to manage this constantly. Here are 10 common pawn shop revenue drivers: interest on pawn loans, service fees, storage fees where allowed, late or renewal fees where allowed, resale of forfeited collateral, profit from items bought outright, jewelry and precious metal sales, tool and electronics resale, online marketplace sales, add-on services, depending on location. Some shops also sell online. That has changed the business. In the past, a pawn shop was limited mostly to local foot traffic. Today, a shop can list certain items online and reach a much bigger buyer base. That can improve resale prices, especially for collectibles, luxury goods, musical instruments, watches, and specialty electronics. But online selling also adds work. Photos, descriptions, shipping, returns, fraud risk, platform fees, customer disputes. So the pawn shop has to decide which items deserve online exposure and which should just be sold locally. Now let's talk about interest rates. Pawn loan rates vary heavily by state, country, and local regulation. Some places cap monthly interest tightly. Other places allow higher fees. Some separate interest from storage or service charges. That means two pawn shops in two different states can have very different economics. A shop in a highly regulated area may need higher volume and faster inventory turnover. A shop in a looser market may earn more from each loan, but can also face more public criticism and regulatory pressure. This is why pawn shops are not just retail businesses. They are local regulation businesses. The same model can look very different depending on the legal environment. The best pawn shops survive by being disciplined. They do not lend based on emotion. They do not overpay for inventory just because something looks expensive. They do not fill the store with slow-moving items. They understand that cash is their real product. The merchandise is just the mechanism. A pawn shop is profitable when it can answer 3 questions better than the customer can. What is this item worth today? How fast can it sell? How much risk is there between now and resale? That is the core of the business. The customer sees a watch, a guitar, a necklace, or a drill. The pawn shop sees liquidity. It sees default probability. It sees resale margin. It sees storage cost. It sees market demand. And it sees how quickly that item can become cash again. So when you walk past a pawn shop, you are not just looking at a second-hand store. You are looking at a small-scale collateral lending machine. Every item has a story. Every shelf has capital tied up in it. Every loan is a bet. And every price tag is part of a larger calculation. That is how a pawn shop makes money. It lends carefully, it prices defensively, it sells opportunistically, and above all, it keeps cash moving. If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a comment with the next business you want explained, like the video, and subscribe for more deep dives into how everyday businesses actually work.